All right, guys, welcome back to another Snapper Chat podcast. Today we've got a very special guest, somebody that's actually from the same city that I'm from, somebody that is a mega titan in the solar industry, somebody that has been doing it for a long time. He's probably going to continue to do it for a long time. A lot of people look up to this person as a personal mentor of theirs, somebody that has been a huge trailblazer. And guys, I want to introduce to you Mr. David Williamson. And David, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. I always enjoy watching your podcast. You always have so much insight. You know, obviously we're in such an interesting industry in the solar industry, and you definitely know what's going on. I love hearing what you've got to say, but I think I'm curious, and I'm sure a lot of people are too, like, how did you start? I know we're both from Grand Rapids, which I think it's pretty cool.
Yep.
Did you do solar in Grand Rapids? Like, what did you want to do in high school? What did you want to do in college? And how did you get into the solar industry? So just what's the origin story of Mr. David Williamson?
If we're going to go that far back, remember I'm 52 years old, so it's going to take a long time to go that far back. But in high school, I did not have much of a direction. I know I wanted to entertain a little bit. I know I had a problem in school because I was always trying to make the class laugh or trying to make teachers laugh, which is a lot of people have that story. But I graduated high school, I think, with a D plus average. I think my best subject was Spanish, got an A in that. And I didn't go to college. I have zero college. I've driven past colleges. That's the closest I've ever gotten. I don't think I've ever set foot on a college campus, ever. So, yeah, not too bright. Just like you, not super smart. But I got into sales right away by, just an evolution of a friend of mine was working at the mall at Wilson's Leather and said, hey, you should sell leather jackets. I started selling leather jackets, and I thought it was fun. There was no commission in it. It was just like $7 an hour or $5 an hour, whatever it was back then. I just liked the point system. I wanted to win each week or every month, whatever the closeout was. I only worked there for a couple months, but it was really fun selling. After that, I worked in the restaurant business. Serving tables is selling. You're trying to upsell customers on everything there. It's all suggestive selling. Do you want another dessert? Things like that. But then eventually I worked in a factory for a couple of years, which was awful. Never worked in a meat factory, Will. If you can avoid working 10 hours in a hot dog factory, sounds like a really bad joke, but it was true. I worked in a hot dog factory. After that, I just started selling. I was selling cars for a while when I was like 24, 25 years old. I sold cars for 3 years. I loved selling used cars. It was super fun. You have to break down the wall of everyone's thinking that you're a scumbag right away. And so once you get past that, then you can actually transact and then, of course, rip their heads off on a used car. I think we are scumbags in the used car industry. I don't know why I just said that. But from used cars, and I went to water treatment sales. Someone dragged me into that industry. That was in-home sales, first time doing that. 6 years doing water treatment, which was a different kind of sale. There's more of a demonstration inside someone's home. There's sitting across the kitchen table. There's dealing with dogs barking in the background like mine just did. There's kids running around. There's all that was a new distraction for me. The car dealership, they're there in your store. It's different. So selling on their turf was a new experience. It took me a while to learn that. From water treatment, went into air conditioning sales, went into solar water heating, and it morphed into solar PV. I started selling solar electric in around 2011 or 12 is when I started selling solar PV. So that's how I got into the industry.
In Michigan, or where were you?
No, this is all in Arizona. I left Michigan when I was
okay.
23 years old. All of this is Arizona, selling cars out here, everything. The factory work and the dead end lifestyle, that was Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm much happier out here. The sun is always shining.
Yeah. So what was that first conversation that you had with somebody? Because I think it's interesting hearing people's stories, how they got into solar. And everybody's got a different story. So what was it for you? I know it kind of was a gradual progression from hearing about this sales opportunity, and then it was this, and then all of a sudden you're just selling solar. So did you work with a different installer? Were you selling a different type of product? How did you eventually end up to the point where you said, hey, I'm going to start my own company?
Well, talented salespeople, and if there's any salespeople on this listening to this, talented salespeople are constantly recruited. We are the commodity that everybody wants. We go and get the customers. So yes, in every sales industry, you have the end user who's buying the product, but the salesperson before that is the second customer you're selling to. So catering to that person. So when you're a good salesperson selling a product and someone meets you, they always want to recruit you to sell their next product. And that's what happened over time. It was, like I said, water treatment, air conditioning, solar water heating, solar electric. The solar electric one is the one that stuck because I just like it. It's such a great value prop, being able to put something on someone's house that increases the value of the home, lowers the electric bill, helps the environment, which is like completely secondary for most people, gives people financial security relative to the electric bill, and a sales rep can make a lot of money, and an installer can make money, and an install crew can feed their family. All of those economics that trickle down were amazing for the industry. I got into it selling. Someone recruited me from water treatment over to that. I had to learn solar from scratch. There was no class on it. I had to, my first day in, someone handed me a sun cap calculator and go, it's called a lease. Just put the numbers in here. I'm like, oh, what's azimuth? They go, just put in 180. And I go, what's the tilt? And they go, put in 22. I'm like, okay. Literally just saying, do that, and then go show the customer the price. So I had to learn everything in the solar industry from scratch. No one taught me. There was no class. So that was a fun experience going through all that, learning everything on the sales side, and then eventually becoming a sales manager at another place, and then eventually carpooling with my former business partner one day to the East Valley where we live. We were working in North Phoenix, and I said, if we had a little bit of startup money and a contractor's license, we probably could just do our own thing. And he said, well, I don't have any money and I'm no contractor. And I said, well, I have access to both. And so I got us a contractor's license, and I got us a little office and a startup. And it was just two guys selling solar and installing it ourselves for the first year and a half, and kept evolving from there. And I've got 100 Titan stories that, talk about the growth. And I probably have 200 Titan stories that talk about where it is today. None of that's my fault, everyone. The 7 people listening to Will's podcast, not my fault. So, I've got, like I said, that's a long story. I don't think we have 4 hours on this thing, right?
No, but I'm just curious, when you first started, when you guys looked at it, what did you think was going to be the best case scenario? And what did you think was going to be like the worst case scenario when you first started Titan? And
The
what
best,
year was that?
it was 2000. We started March 1st, 2013.
Okay.
And the goal, the best case scenario, had nothing to do with being a national installer, had nothing to do with any of that stuff. The goal was to sell solar and have someone else install it. That was the goal. We just wanted to be the contractor of record. That's all. And we wanted to control our own fate. We didn't want to work for someone. We were working for a company. It was called Summer Wind Solar. It was run by a couple of just awful human beings that didn't know anything about business. And, one of the owners is cheating on his wife, and I can see his emails where his eHarmony account is there while he introduces me to his wife and daughter. I'm like, this guy's a scumbag. Well, I didn't want to work. I didn't want to work for that person anymore. And I didn't want to keep working for someone at 40 years old. You're like, man, I wish I could do this myself. So we just wanted to be in business for ourselves. But no, the goal was to make enough money to pay the bills. And then a bunch of circumstances led to Titan's growth, especially in Arizona. And then we got dragged into other markets. A lot of the same way other companies, you're a successful contractor in one state. You have a sales force that sends you the deals. They say, oh, can't you get licensed in this other state that's close by? And you go, sure. And you go figure it out, and you get licensed, and then you start doing deals there, and you have the growth and the learning curve of that. But the goal was just to pay the bills. The goal was not to do, 2021, the last full year I was at Titan, we did 1.9 billion in sales. And if you take away the cancels, because of course there's a cancellation rate, a lot of it's door to door, it was like 1.4 billion. And we installed 1 billion. We installed literally $1 billion worth of installs in 1 year. That was receivable money. And then there was, of course, the work in progress that went into the next year. So the company was, huge. I didn't know it was going to be a, $1 billion company. I was just a sales guy that barely got out of high school trying to make a living. So that thing, and I learned a lot over those course of 10 years working at Titan, learned ways to communicate and how to run the business and how to treat people. And of course, I made mistakes along the way, but, I'm much more well-rounded today. But yeah, the goal was just paying the bills. Same as it is today, just trying to pay the bills.
Yeah. And then I'd love to have you kind of segue into the DW method, which is obviously the David Williamson method, what you're teaching. And I guess the question before you go into that is, with the whole and your whole career, all the experience that you've had, what did you feel like the whole time that you were good at, and what did you feel like were not your strong suits? Maybe things that you need to like bring in, partners and other people in to help you out with. What did you feel like you were good at, and then what are you going to be teaching with the DW method, and what is the DW method?
Well, what I was good at, what I am still good at, Nick, what you're good at. I know what I'm good at. Some people can say, want to be humble and say, oh, I don't know what I'm good at. I know what I'm good at. I'm good at explaining things. I can explain complex things in a way that someone gets it. I can explain a D rate better than anyone in the whole industry. I just know I can do it better. And I can explain it literally, but not go over someone's head and talk past them. I just know how to talk, especially to salespeople. During my hiatus at Titan, when I was removed 2 years ago, I was a little bit lost for a while, and people were asking me what I wanted to do next. I was watching the company being run by someone else. I still had my ownership stake in it, and I had to watch them, destroy something that I give my credit. So I built it. I built that thing, and then I watched them tear it down, having a minority stake in it through a bunch of unfortunate circumstances. I couldn't control it, and they destroyed it. Well, I was pretty depressed during that time, and I thought, man, what I used to love doing was traveling around. I used to travel with Matt and Chrissy and Dustin, and that's a whole story we don't want to talk about. We can air that dirty laundry later. But we used to travel around with them and talk to salespeople, and I used to explain solar to them, like in a way that they could understand. If I go to a salesperson right now, I could talk to anybody in the industry, and I say, do me a favor, tell me how solar works in 30 seconds. Give me the 30-second solar pitch. How does solar work? I'm going to get 7 different answers that are going to be stuttering and stammering and ums and ahs and bumbling and mumbling through it. If someone doesn't know their 30-second solar pitch, like there's a racking system customized to the roof that you have. There's panels that are attached to the racking system. They're situated in a way to collect the most amount of sunlight. That power is DC power. It comes down into an inverter, turning it into AC power, and that's what we use in our home. The excess power goes back to the grid. They credit us in some way. When we need it back from the grid, it sends it back to us. They send us a net bill at the end of it, and we see if we're plus or minus on the month. That's basically how solar works.
And that's completely different than what I would say. I'd be like, hey, do you know why you bought your house? You bought it because you own it, right? And I'm like, all right, would you rather own your house for $1,600 a month, or would you rather rent it for, let's just say like $1,400 a month? It's like you'd rather own it even if it was more, right? It's the same thing with solar. The good news is that solar is not going to be more than electricity. It's going to be a little bit less. But with electricity, you're just paying off just like, renting your house, you're just paying off some millionaire's house. Whereas with solar, you own it and it's at a fixed rate, right? Do you believe in inflation? Yes, of course you do, right? Electricity's going up, rent's always going up. With solar, just like how you own your house, it's at a fixed rate, and there's an end date. At that point, you're getting free power to the home. Those are two completely different ways to explain solar, right?
You're explaining the value of getting solar. I'm explaining how the machine works, and there's a disconnect between. And there's nothing wrong with what you just said. Is excellent. Like we all need to know. You painted a picture using an analogy, the rental house thing, right? I get that. There's a disconnect in our industry because there is a lot of people that teach closing techniques. There's a lot of people that teach mindset. There's not a lot of people that teach how the machine works, information on the panels, the inverter, the racking, the install, the engineering, taking that info and putting it into a sales pitch so that your sale not only closes harder, better, faster, it sticks longer too. Our industry is dominated by door-to-door salespeople, which is fantastic. I love the door-to-door salesperson. It's the lowest barrier of entry to go get a sale, and it takes the most amount of willpower. So you have a dedicated door-to-door person. You're like, that person deserves every penny they get because they had to self-motivate, get up, get out, and get no'd all day long until they find a yes. So that's a unique person. We can't just have that person though be filled with pitches and lines and all these things about, I'm here looking at the meter, I'm here representing the utility. Can I talk to you about owning or renting your house? Got to give them some product knowledge. Talented salespeople need a little bit of product knowledge. My way, like we call it DW method. Johnny Bubbles and I are producing videos, and we're going to have it hosted on Kajabi, and I will be selling courses. That my courses are going to have absolute real value. I'm going to teach people about the thing they're selling and how to sell it using the info that I give them. Basically, my way I would pitch somebody. And I guarantee, and it's not bragging, if I was in a house and doing my pitch and I knew someone was coming after me, I would say enough things where if they're going to listen to the second pitch, they're not buying from that guy. And if someone was before me, I'm going to discredit that person because I know more. There's one thing we can all change. I can't be better looking than you. I mean, I'm already better looking than you. I can't be younger than you. You got that on me. You can't be taller than me. We can't change our looks. We can't change our voice. We can't change these things. But you can learn more than me if you want. You can outlearn me. You can out-knowledge me. I can out-knowledge you. If we're not continually educating ourselves in our industry, whether it's solar or sales or both together, like you're going to get passed up by somebody. And if you're not continually learning the thing that you're selling, And if someone's only selling solar temporarily because it's a product to sell for a while because they can make money and then they're going to go sell something else, okay. But do the best job you can selling. And the features that we sell are not just bill swap. And there is no existential crisis of power. We got to have some more sophisticated pitches on that. We got to learn a little bit about the product. Tell me about the panel. What are the three major components on a solar panel that customers care about? What's the size of the panel? How much does it weigh? What kind of inverter is it? Is it a pure sine wave inverter? Does it match the frequency to the grid? All these things. If you don't say these things to the customer and you're in a pitch and I'm coming in after you and I tell them why it works, they're like, oh, wow. Well, the last kid didn't tell me that. And I go, yeah, you don't want to buy from someone like that, do you? They go, no. So I've had a lot of coffee. So I'm all fired up, talking too fast.
No, it's good. It's good. I think it's interesting because like when I first got into solar, which would have been the summer of 2021, right? I wish I would have started you. I graduated high school in March or April or May, right, of 2013. So that would have been sweet if I would have just came and worked with you right away back then. But hindsight's 2020. But when I did start in 2021, so that would have been what, 8 years later, there was a guy, we'll just call him Edmund, and he said, dude, like, you don't need to know anything about how solar works. You just need to know your $5 million script. He's like, this is your $5 million script. He's like, they don't care about AC to DC, photovoltaic cells, microinverters. He's like, just explain to them how net metering works, show them what their situation looks like, and then, you know, there's some neurolinguistic programming in there, like talking about the tax credit, right? You explain it properly, but it's like, dude, you're getting like let's just call it a $9,000 tax credit. That was a situation that I had with the homeowner that I self-gened yesterday, which I got a deal yesterday, David. So like, we're not just sitting here on these podcasts, like we're still out in the field making it happen, right?
I know you are.
You know, I just said, hey, like, you know, what are you gonna do with the $9,000 tax credit? You gonna go to Disneyland? You gonna go to freaking get an RV and travel around the country? So what is your, I guess, like thoughts on that with people saying like homeowners just want to know exactly what their situation looks like? Because I'll always ask them, like, what's more important to you? Saving money, being inflation proof, equity into the home? Like, what are the biggest things? And I sell based on that. But I think sometimes people think it's like too complicated, right? But I agree with you. I mean, Jordan Belfort talks about like they got to be a 10 on you, they got to be a 10 on the product, and they got to be a 10 on the company. And so if you don't know what you're talking about right there, they're not going to really understand it. But do you really think it's that important that they understand at least the three different parts of a solar panel and how it plugs in and all the different things to be an expert?
No, like let's take what you just mentioned about Edmund, the person who says, if we just take the transcript of those words, you don't have to know everything about solar in order to sell it. That's a true statement. The manner in which he says it is flawed because he says it bragging about how he doesn't know anything, but he can still sell. That's what I've heard him say. And it's not unique to Edmund. Lots of people talk like that. You know, I've hung out with Nolan from New Sun in Luxor. He said the same thing. Well, I don't know. I don't have to know all that stuff. I'm like, you don't have to know it. You're right. You don't have to know all that stuff. You can sell solar without that stuff. And you're going to miss out on some money and miss out on some deals. And you're going to miss out on some recruits because you're not well-rounded and you don't know how to explain it. If you were a sales leader and you're recruiting young guys and getting them motivated by the same kind of culture, flat brim, snapback hats, dope watches, cool cars, and you're going to motivate them that way. Fantastic. What about the 40-year-old person who doesn't appeal to that culture and they want to know some more stuff? Those people have a big network of other people that they're going to sell to. There's a lot of those out there as well. And they don't care about what cigar you're smoking. And they don't care about what car you're driving. They want to know, okay, how does the machine work? Like, well, how many holes are in the roof? Because they know that a customer, when they ask them, they want to give the answer. Knowing all the stuff and using all the stuff is one thing. I should know everything about the product I sell and how to sell almost every single feature. Because I could take the smallest item. I could take a mid-circuit interrupter from a Tesla system, hold it up to a customer, and spend 3 minutes on it, and I'll close a deal because you didn't do it. And you know what a mid-circuit interrupter is, right?
I've never heard of a mid-circuit interrupter.
Right, and it's not necessary to know what a mid-circuit interrupter is in order to sell solar at all. But if I bring it up and I say, folks, this is the safety device because Tesla inverters don't have module-level performance electronics. They're a string inverter, true string inverter, and since it doesn't have rapid shutdown, you have to install a mid-circuit interrupter every 4 panels on the roof. I just want to let you guys know that. So that's like a safety switch. And they go, oh, thank you. They feel good. I sound smart. You come in afterwards, not you personally, but a guy comes in afterwards and it's all, he's just selling off his personality only. And they go, what's the safety mechanism you guys use? The last guy talked about this mid-circuit interrupter. They go, I've never heard of that. Uh-oh. They're like, why? That'd be really tough to sell past that if you don't even know what that is. And that's the kind of little stuff. That's not like I'm going to do videos on all kinds of product, but I'm not going to go into the nuances of every single thing. But there are some things we should know and say, man, I can take this. I used to take wire. I'd go inside a house and I would have wire and I'd be twirling it around my finger while I talk to a homeowner. And I go, oh, by the way, this is the kind of wire we use. We use double jacketed PV. We use double jacketed PV wire on the roof. I know some installers that just use bare TAHN number 10 up there. And that's obviously not okay because it can't be in open air, but this is what we use. And they go, whoa, are you an electrician? I go, nope. I'm just a guy who barely got out of high school. And I took one thing. I heard one time another installer was using wrong wire on there. Like, does that happen? People are like, yeah, it happens all the time. And I go, oh. And then I just started carrying it around. I mean, I've got parts laying around everywhere. You don't have a DC optimizer with you, do you?
No.
Is there any harm in having a look how small it is. Look.
I just have a hammock.
What's wrong with having a DC optimizer? If you had to sell, if you go, hey, we use DC optimizers on the roof. You know what it does? Customer goes, what? You go, it optimizes. And they'll laugh. Seriously, folks, it pulls the most power out of each panel because they're not created equally. They're also not installed perfectly evenly. Some are over here, some are over there. That gets the most amount of electricity out of each panel when it's at its peak performance. We put one of those under each one of your panels. They go, wow, that sounds cool. I don't have to explain the inside of it, but I should want to explain that feature because heaven forbid I can't close that deal. They're going to ask the next guy about a DC optimizer and what its function is. Or I close the deal 2 days later, someone knocks on the door because they looked up the permit and they go, hey, I've got a better deal for you. And they go, well, tell me about it. And they go, I can lower your price by this. And they go, do you use like optimizers? They go, I don't know. It's just a lower price. They're going to give me a chance to save my deal. But I want to make my close real solid by giving the customer a couple, 3 or 4 pieces of info that I think they'll value, telling them the number of roof penetrations, telling them the brand of roof sealant and that it's non-water based. Like that stuff goes, oh, wow, I knew there's going to be holes in the roof. That many, okay, good. Oh, and that kind of warranty? Okay. Like they feel better. If you're in there just going, yeah, we do a good job of install. Don't worry. That's not the same. And a young person can sound exactly like I'm sounding. The scripts I'm talking to you, that's just years and years of practicing, saying the same thing over and over. And I just sound like an electrician. I sound like an engineer. I'm a dumb sales guy. I tell people all the time, I'm just a piece of shit sales guy.
So, but you definitely, you care about people, right? You care about being an expert in your field. So I'm curious, were there experiences that you had middle school, high school, as a kid that you think kind of got you like that? Was it your parents? Was it a mentor? Was there somebody that influenced you to be passionate about sales, be passionate about being an expert, be passionate about being a, like you're talking about here, like an expert in your field?
I think it's more of wanting to be in a position of kind of always being right. That probably comes from my mom. She was, and my, if you want to go back in my family history, people would say my mom's not a fantastic person. She's kind of mean, and I'm kind of mean. Yeah, I probably get that from her too. But she was mean, funny, but she was always wanted to be right. In order to always be right, you have to know what you're talking about, and you have to serve up. You have to say things in a way where you can't be called out for being wrong. When I'm talking about something that I know is subjective or opinion, I'll lead with, it's my opinion that this thing works in this way. My experience is this, this, and this. I won't say this is how it is. I like to sit in a chair where I can't be questioned. And when you're in selling, you want to say things in a way where you can't ever be called into question. No one's going to say you lied. I don't ever want to mislead a customer on purpose or on accident. When I explain the tax credit, I think I do it in a really, really clear way, but I don't tell them, I can look at your taxes and tell you if you're going to qualify in this way. I tell them the system and you guys could qualify for a federal tax credit, which is up to 30% of the system value. You fill out federal tax form 5695. It's line 11. You put the value of the system, you multiply by 30%, That's the money you could get back on your taxes if you're eligible for it. That's it. They go, how would I know? I go, you're going to ask your tax preparer, or you're going to just look at your income and you're going to figure it out. You do your own taxes. But that's what you could get back or owe less to the government. But it's real. The purchase qualifies for it. I don't know if you have the income. You got to decide that. Or just go with a PPA and let them take the tax credit. Whenever it's in question, the best thing to do is say, folks, you can get the tax credit, but it's more of a get the tax credit. You'll get the financial benefit of the tax credit by letting someone else maximize it. You'll get a reduced payment by getting a power purchase agreement or a lease. That's how a lot of people do it. System's guaranteed for 25 years. It's under warranty. It's indemnified. Everything. It's the best way to go. And then you sell that way if you're not sure about the tax credit. Like, there's really no functional difference. You just have to. That's more of the art of the sale. Though, pivoting when you need to pivot.
Yep.
It was kind of a long answer of where did I get this mentality from? It's the mentality of wanting to be correct and give the information the right way.
And I think a lot of people want to be correct too. And I think it's interesting right now. There's a lot of people that are leaving the space. They're leaving the solar industry, David. Can you believe it? I can't believe it. Because here's what I think, right? Titan did how many installs total? Over 100,000, right? More installs than anybody in the space. I've knocked in 10, 12 different states, right? Yesterday I was in St. Louis, Missouri. We've been in California. We've been in Florida. We've been in Texas. We've been on the East Coast, West Coast. We've knocked all over, right? Guess how many times I've ran into a Titan install? 0 times, dude, right? And you did 100,000 of them. I've never ran into it. And so it's like, it's still an incredible industry. My question is this. What is your message for everybody in the solar industry for this next year, next 2 years, for the rest of the decade? Because obviously there's more solar to be sold. Why do you think people are leaving the space? They're getting into insurance, right? Like, why are people leaving, and why, and more importantly, should they stay in this space?
All right, so I got 2 takes on it. I know why people are leaving, because it's not as easy as it was before. That's as simple as it is. The reason why someone leaves is because it's not as easy as it was before. And I remember back in the day when we sold a SunPower lease. A SunPower lease back in 2012, in Arizona specifically, you could sell a lease for a 9 kilowatt system that would make like 15,000, 16,000 kilowatt hours a year, and would give the customer like $100 payment. And they would have a $200 savings off their bill. It was the easiest. You could walk down the street throwing solar to people. You would sell a customer and say, you know what? Have a little party here. Invite 10 of your friends over, and you'd come over and you'd bring donuts, and you'd sell 4 of those people because you do a mass pitch all at once. That was a really big deal. Meeting with HOA, going to the HOA meeting and selling everybody once. You were just giving it away. SunPower changed their calculator one day. They realized the economic was poor. On Friday, we all went to bed, and it was a $100 savings to the customer. On Monday, we ran the calculator, and it was a $40 or $50 savings to the customer. And half the sales reps couldn't adapt. Well, who's going to buy it now? It's only a $40 savings. And that was the mentality. A lot of people left, and then new people had to come back in. And then a new person comes in, and you go, hey, we get to sell this product to this homeowner with no money out of their pocket. They're going to save $40 a month for the rest of their life. And the savings escalate as the power goes up. They go, holy crap, this is a great industry. I'm like, yeah, go tell that to that guy. He thinks you can't sell it unless it's $100 savings. I'm like, what? I can sell this with no savings. Because a lot of times we sell no savings. So people leave because it got hard. There's another reason people leave that is to do with the difficulty, and that's they don't get paid. And that's a long rabbit trail of sales rep doesn't get paid because the installer wasn't getting paid, because the finance company didn't pay them, because the installer didn't get it to PTO in time. And there's a whole bad cycle of operational efficiency and accountability that trickles down and lands on the rep, because the rep creates revenue. The rep expects revenue. They see a dollar amount in their wallet, on their virtual wallet, on their CRM, and they go, okay, it got installed. Do I get my money? We go, a bunch of circumstances happen. I can't give it to you. And that person has to overcome that horrible news, and maybe they haven't budgeted. But that's going to be an example of salespeople. If you don't have a rainy day fund, if you've got a pipeline of 100,000, you better have $100,000 in the bank as well. Like, that money is not your money until it's actually your money. So save. Don't let that bad cycle happen. Everyone has a story about, oh, I lost my pipeline. I lost 20 grand. I lost 50 grand. They always tell these numbers. Yeah, And is that why you're renting your house and you're struggling and you shouldn't have to, you should have that happen and be able to keep selling through that. So there's a responsibility issue as salespeople. We've got to save our money. Don't just go buying fancy watches and a bunch of shoes and have a big house and lots of cars. That's a bad lesson, actually. Yeah.
Pool in the backyard.
Yep.
With like a really nice like sliding door with the living room that just goes right out to the
Literally
pool.
just describing my house. I know.
With like sweet chairs that you can like roll around in, dude.
Yep, the Kardashian chairs back there. Yep. Okay, that's a bad lesson. That's only if you became a great installer. So what I would tell people on the flip side, that's what people are leaving. What I would tell someone who's in the industry now, if you're in the industry now and you've suffered through that, let's go forward, pick the right installer, pick the right leader. Don't follow someone crazier than you. Like, find someone stable, find a program, make sure everything is measured and controlled, and go out and sell solar and get customers as much as you can. But more than that, go get new recruits. A brand new person coming into solar doesn't know that we went through 2 years of garbage just now. They don't know that stuff. They just go, you tell me how the machine works, you tell me the economics of how I sell it relative to a lease or a purchase. I go to someone's house and they're using 17-cent power, and I'm selling them a machine that makes 13-cent power. You go, right. For the rest of their life, you're locking them in at 13-cent power, where they're at 17 today and it goes up. And they go, this is the easiest sale ever. You go, you would think it's the easiest sale ever, but you have to learn how to do it. And of course, we teach them. But how can someone not want to join the solar industry by going, you just go to someone's house who has to buy power? They have no choice. One of the best door pitches that I've never tried, and I've told people they should try it, knock on the door, and instead of saying you're with the power company or you're doing a survey or you're going to blah, 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 go, hey, do you guys use electricity here? Or are you guys on candles and churning your own butter? And they go, what? Yeah. Oh, you're on the grid. Oh, glad I stopped by. Your grid power is about 17 cents per kilowatt hour out here. I'm kind of with a local company as well that supplies power, supplying solar power. And we're offering it for like 12 to 13 cent power if you qualify. Has anyone talked to you about the alternate power? Is this solar? Folks, it could be solar, it could be natural gas, it could be wind, it could be coal. It doesn't matter. You're buying this thing for this amount. I'm going to offer you the same thing at this amount. If it was Netflix and you're paying $26 a month for Netflix and I was going to give you Netflix for 24, wouldn't you just do it for 24? And they go, yeah. Okay. Well, forget about solar. Do you want to just lower an expense you have to have? They go, yeah. Okay. You already use electricity. We started with you. You use it. Invite me in. It's cold out here. It's hot out here. Whatever you say. But
yeah, that's a hard one to overcome though. Of like, is this solar? And people like have already made up their mind. And one thing I would say with that, David, is like, in order to make a new decision, people need new information. And the way that you just explained that, right? You were first step, like you build rapport and then you educate and inform them. And just that word track there, I think that's smooth because they'll look at you as a professional. They'll look at you as like, dude, this is not just some kid that's like not knowing what he's talking about. Like, he clearly is an expert. He's enthusiastic, but I really like that word track there to be able to overcome that objection of like, is this solar? Oh, no. We're good with solar.
Yeah. Who cares? Who cares if it's solar? If we're talking about lowering a bill, that's it. And eventually we're going to have to get back to solar. And obviously we're not doing a sales training right now for anybody on this podcast, but those word tracks, they all start layering together and we go down a road. We start here. We want to get to here and we have to take detours the whole way because the customer will try to divert us. And that's just on the door. There's a whole another segment of those things that happen at the kitchen table when you're trying to close and they go, well, what happens if this happens? What happens if the power goes out? Well, do I need a battery? We have all kinds of training for that. Part of my training platform is addressing those concerns as well without coming across just like a salesperson who's just trying to shut down objections. How do we address that? How do you feel good about it? How do we move forward? So those are the kind of things that I'm interested in educating people on. And I have been for, 10 years. I like talking to salespeople. I'm a salesperson. I like training salespeople. I like success stories. When we would go on the road, we do a sales meeting in the morning and someone would message me on Instagram going, hey man, I said that thing that you said in the meeting and I got an appointment off it. And I'm like, dope, text me tomorrow if it closes. Then I get the text the next day, sold a 5 kW, made this much money. I'm like, that's so cool. Like, how great is that? That kid made some money, helped that homeowner because of something that I suggested they say. That feels great. Well, I get a good feeling off that.
Yep. I think it's interesting too because you've been doing this for so long to the point where it's like you've got the authority, just kind of like how like Jeremy Miner, right, with the neuro linguistic programming and the NEPQ, the little black book he's doing. But there's so many different trainers, right? Like we've got Snapper Academy, you got Michael O'Donnell, you've got Andy Elliott. What do you think are some of the things that these guys are doing that you like, and what are some things that you maybe would want them to improve on with the sales training space? Because I think so many people in the space, like they don't really know where to look. They're just looking up videos on YouTube, but like there's got to be like the authority of like, hey, like if you do this, like watch this, because like there's so many different parts to it too, right?
Right.
I was able to get into the industry, and within like 6 months, I was running a team of like 100 people, right? That's not a lot of people. Most people come in and they could just set for the next 2-3 years and still make $100,000 a year. Some people just want to go out there and be a closer. Some people want to say, you know what, I'm going to create my own company, right? I'm going to go out there and I'm going to become an installer. So there's so many different avenues in order to be successful. Do you feel like with the DW method, you're going to be able to be a solution to that?
I can guarantee that my way of explaining solar and talking about sales is going to be different than everyone else you mentioned. And I haven't gone on to any one of those guys and looked at every single video that they make. I've seen enough content from all those people where I could say, I have an idea of how that person sells, and I have an idea of how that person sells. And someone like a Jeremy Miner, you go, yeah, that's really classy, controlled, not obnoxious. And Andy Elliott, you see his training videos. He's the opposite. He's in your face, screaming, swearing. That's not my style. I'm not saying you can't have, you can't be enthusiastic, but, be body shaming people into a fitness regime isn't sales. Like,
hey, I won 10 grand though.
I know you won 10 grand, but you made a bet and you chose to take it. But the notion of that doesn't just mean you don't just get in shape and then you're good at sales. You still have to know how to connect with people. Case in point, Mike O'Donnell is a really good sales guy. I think he has a very specific type of pitch in the home. He has a guy's that his age, his stature, his demeanor is more of a, I don't want to say pushy sales guy, but aggressive sales guy. It's the notion of, I'm not coming back here because I'm going to keep going. The be back bus isn't showing up, and that's okay. That's not my style, but I don't disagree with him functionally. Yeah, that's it. But that's proof right there that Andy Elliott can't be just correct, because here's Mike O'Donnell not in that shape, not saying the F word over and over, and is successful. So the point is, there's enough audience out there where all of these different personalities can appeal. There's some guys that like the brotherhood mentality, and they want the abs and being ripped and all that stuff, and they like that, and that motivates them to go out and make sales. But I don't think there's much education on the nuance of closing other than the aggressive car pitch that they teach. I've seen it enough times. I visited their campus. I'm like, yeah, I get what they're doing, but that's not my style. My way is just a little different. Mine is knowledge, a little bit of humor, and guiding a customer to a place where I want them to go. I want them to get to a yes at the close. So I'm going to intentionally ask questions that suit me best. I'm not going to give them the questions where they can say no to something. And if they have an excuse or if they have an objection, I want to answer it in a way where they can't stick with that one thing. What happens if this happens? I have a rebuttal for that. So, and it's not just some super aggressive thing, and it's not some pushy thing. And if they want to buy from me, great. And if they don't, I do want to leave the house with a chance to get them back. I don't want to tell them I'm not coming back. That doesn't make sense. There are deals where we go in there and we don't close. The goal is to close, but you can't expect 100% closing ratio on every sit. Why would I close off the opportunity to go back to them, especially if they go out and get a bad experience from the next person? So yeah, I don't have that Mike O'Donnell mentality. I don't have that Andy Elliott mentality, but they all can appeal to a different type of person. And there's enough humans out there where we all can make a living training the way we want. And people should buy different programs and see what they like. If you like that program, stick with that program. Stay on their trainings. You like this one? Use that one. But you got to invest some kind of money into these programs, unless you're just going to do it yourself and wing it. And that's
10%, right? 10% of your income, whether it's 100,000 or a million or 50 grand, you should invest 10% of that into yourself, personally developing yourself, right? Going to conferences, taking courses.
right.
buying time with mentors, things like that, right?
I don't know the dollar amount or the percentage amount necessarily, but I know there should be some kind of investment of time, at least time. And if it has to be money because you need to get that person's attention and their time is really valuable, then sure, pay for it. But I've talked to plenty of people and had mentoring calls with people, and I'm not charging for that time, especially if we're just hanging out for a half hour and they just want to ask questions. I'm like, yeah, I'll give you the answers to that. But no, my way of training is just my way, and it's not. It doesn't mean it's perfect. I think it's really good. I think the way I explain things is really good. But I'm not sitting here telling I'm better than any one of these other people. I don't care to boast that I'm better than them. I think I'm pretty good.
Wait, so you'll just hop on a call with somebody? Because I had somebody last week ask me like, "Hey, we're in this market. We're the installer. I think they're in Florida." And they just said, "We have a lot of questions for you about like how we should set our red line. We have no idea how it works." And I said, "Yeah, I have people that ask this question all the time, and typically, we can spend a whole day, but I'm happy to hop on a call with you for an hour, and it's $250 an hour." And I was like, going to charge for that. Should I just hop on the call with them and just put them on game for free, or do you think it's something where like your time's valuable, right? Like if I just had people calling me all the time wanting to talk, it's like I'm not going to benefit from that at all, and I'm happy to explain to them what I think people are doing and what we're doing and what works and what doesn't work, and pinpoint the solution to their problems, right? But is that something that like as a consultant we should be charging for, or do you think you just
I think
hop on the call?
I think you share knowledge with people for a potential relationship. If I would have had a mindset where I'm not gonna talk to anybody, or I'm not gonna deal with anybody because they're too small and I don't have to invest in them, then I would have missed out on a lot of opportunities. So I'd say you have to be a little bit judicious about your time. But if someone says they want to know how to set a red line, and if it's an installer saying, what should my red line be? And you give them a quick opinion, that's okay. You're just sharing knowledge. That might come back to you one day where they go, hey, we've got this opportunity. We'd like you to be here because you poured into us so well. But if it's something that isn't going to happen like that, and you want to charge for your time and you think it's valuable and they are willing to pay, then go for it. I didn't know that you know how to set a red line because you know the cost stack so well. Will, tell me about it.
Yep, $250. We happy to hop on a call. No,
I'll tell you what. I'll put up money. You put up money, and we'll see who knows more about stacking a red line.
deal. That would be fun. I think people would like to see that. So, David, I'm obviously biased. I think solar is the best opportunity in the world. It's personally changed my life. Like I went to school, Grand Valley State University, which right?
Yep.
I went to school to be an English teacher, and now I'm able to in the last 3.5 years go from being like a brand new setter to a closer that was able to go out there and do 32 deals in a month, and then build a team that did 500 installs, which is nothing compared to what you did. But in a short amount of time, I mean, if the average contract price for solar is $50,000, like that's $25 million in a year. Like, dude, I ran a $25 million business my first year in solar. Like, that's crazy, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like 2023, 2024. Now we're in 2025. So my question is this: what are the top 3 reasons why somebody watching this right now should consider selling solar in 2025? The top 3 reasons.
The top 3 reasons why someone should consider selling solar, because if it's sold correctly and not sold, too high, it's a product that has a zero downside to anyone. Customer has a benefit if they're not sold at a gross, margin. Not as long as it's sold within the constructs of how they're going to use power and how much they get back from the utility company. It's a product that the customer cannot get damaged from. There's some products we sell to. You can go and sell a car to someone, and you can make an $8,000 profit on that. That person, if they want to get out of that car in a year, they're upside down in it. So you can almost damage someone a little bit by overselling them some things sometimes. So selling a product that doesn't hurt the customer, increases the value of their home, stabilizes the electricity for their house, pays you a reasonable and healthy commission. Sometimes we can make a good commission on a job. Like, imagine you're selling a big system in a market that is justifiable for you to make a $15,000 commission on that job. Everyone's made a $15,000 commission. We think about that and go, oh, that's what's wrong with the industry. No, all of the circumstances of that particular job, because of the cost of power, because of the economic we're getting from the finance company, and because of the economic we're getting from the installer, it's in the budget. Why can't we make that money? That's not too egregious on that. What about the deal when we're selling in Missouri when it's 10-cent power and we're giving it away at $2.50 a watt and the red line is $2.20 and we're only making 30 cents a watt? That's a small margin for a rep. for a project that's still that big of a project, like we have to take them in balance. We can make really good money without hurting a homeowner, and everyone gets paid off the deal. The installers get to feed their family. The site surveyor gets to feed his family. Everyone gets money off of it, and no one is damaged by it. And if the tax credit ever went away, we would still be selling solar, and the economics would change, and we could keep selling right through that. We keep selling through everything. We have obstacles put in front of us all the time, and you know what we keep doing? We keep selling through that. So it's a great industry because you'll always be able to sell through the objection, and you get to make a lot of money, and no one's hurt by it. If it's done, obviously, if it's done right in the context that it's done right.
Yep.
So,
last couple of questions. Any thoughts on how Trump's going to affect the industry?
Honestly, I don't care. I don't care. So do anything. Go ahead. Take away the tax credit. Put tariffs on here. Change the economic. Like I just said, we're going to adjust. Before the first Trump, term, we had a certain economic. Trump comes in and the tax credit changes. Once it goes from 30 to 26%, we have this step down. Everyone freaks out. Then Biden takes over and it goes back to 30. And then he adds these things to it. And then we're talking about domestic content here. And domestic content is this nebulous thing that no one knows exactly how much content has to be there and the percentages and who gets the tax credit, who gets the money. I don't care. Tell me what the rules are. Tell me what I can and can't do. What's the parameters? I'll go sell through that. And that's what's going to happen. Let them do whatever they want. We're not in control. You and I are not going to go up on Capitol Hill and say, Trump, please leave the tax credit alone, man. Take it away if you have to. I'll sell through that. I'll still make money, and I'll still sell the product because I like the product. So go ahead. Just tell me what the rules are. I'll keep selling. I'm going to sell through that.
That's a great mindset. I think a lot of people are kind of anxious about that. They're hearing it on the doors. But you hear both sides. I mean, yesterday we knocked a door and they love it because they're going to be able to save money. This other guy loves it because he thinks he can't save money. Like everybody thinks it's different, right? Some people love it because they think Trump loves it. Other people are like, dude, F the government. I would never go solar for something that's government subsidized. So you run into all different types of scenarios with homeowners, and that's why it's important that you're trained up.
Customer says, I wouldn't go solar because it's government subsidized. You go, you don't have to take the tax credit. You just let them keep the money. You can get solar anyway. Just don't take the tax credit. You pay full price. Just don't take tax credit. You're not government subsidized. They go, well, I don't like that. Everyone else is. You're like, really? So you won't do something because someone else takes advantage of it over there? That doesn't make much sense. And then you could start doing a bunch of analogies on, what kind of car they drive versus your car they drive. Like we can spin it 100 different ways. But okay, yes, solar's still good. You just don't take the tax credit. I'll take that money. In fact, you take the tax credits, just give it to me. I'll give it to your church. They'll love it.
Yep.
There are all kinds of ways to do that, man.
I'm convicted on the solar industry. It's personally changed my life. I know same for you. I think too, like for everybody watching this right now, like go out there and get a deal today, like believe in it. Like the deal we got yesterday, the guy was paying $222 a month. We got him locked in at $202, little 10.25 kilowatt system at a 3.2. And it's like, he would have given the utility company $70,000 over the course of the next 25 years. That's right. With no inflation, right? Inflation's real. He's going to pay over $100,000 with inflation. Whereas with solar, his net out-of-pocket cost was only $37,000. So tell me why that's not a win. I make $13,000 on the deal. Like, dude, he just saved $70,000 and had to come out of pocket zero. And We're giving him $1,000 in the mail a week after install, so that can pay for his first 5 months of solar.
How can we not recruit somebody telling that quick story? That's a 45-second story you just told. How do you not get a new recruit off of that story right there? It's go out, more than go out and find a homeowner. Find someone who wants to go find a homeowner and make that much money.
And I knew it, dude. I knew while I was walking up to the door it was going to be a deal. I saw Chicago Bears license plate, and I said, oh, I got him. He comes to the door. He's wearing a tie-dye sweatshirt. I'm like, dude, it's got Great Lakes on it. I'm like, dude, I'm from Grand Rapids. Great Lakes, that's awesome. He'd been from Wisconsin or something. But,
nice.
We getting home. We lock it down. We're in and out within an hour and a half. And it's just like, we put him in a better situation. 10 times out of 10, as long as you're explaining everything that you're talking about, like you're going to put people in a better situation. So, David, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, dude. My very last question for you, and it's like, I like you're talking about at the beginning, like we could do this for 5 hours, right? I'd love to hear all those different stories. I'd love to hear like your first year, your 10th year. I'd love to hear like, dude, what could have been some things where, Titan could have gone to a million installs, right? Like maybe there's a couple things in there, but really my biggest question is, what would be the advice looking back that you would give to your 18-year-old self? If you could go back to that guy, 18-year-olds, in Grand Rapids, Michigan, what would be that advice? Because, a lot of people watching Snapper Academy and this podcast, it's going to be that, 18 to 30-year-old guys and girls. But I think that's a big question that people would like to know. Like, what is that advice you would give to your 18-year-old self?
18-year-old self. What advice I would give to that person? That person, knowing what I know now, going back then, I probably would have said, just keep learning more. I didn't value education at 18 years old. Like, obviously I told you I did a poor job in high school. As you've gotten older, knowing more and learning more is the key to being more well-rounded and articulate when you're like in a sales position. Like, you have to know things. You have to know more. You have to know how to speak. You want to talk without ums and repetition. You want to have a decent vocabulary. Like, these things are all based in education. You don't have to be educated only in school. You can do it through the courses that we talked about and experiences. But I would tell my 18-year-old self, man, I would have gone to college. I would have taken some business classes. I would have done that kind of stuff. Things that would have helped me later in life. I remember in high school, like, I'll never use sine, cosine, and tangent. I remember that stuff, right? Everybody knows those three words. You use that in the solar industry. The roof is like this. The panels look like that. When they go down here, you use that math to figure out how much more space they take up when they're or how much less space they take up visually when they're like this, looking from a bird's eye view. When I found that out in the solar industry, I'm like, man, I wish I would have paid attention. That would have been really helpful. But the really good the question you should be asking towards the end of this is what I'm doing now. What am I doing now? And that's not just this. I'm working at Empower Energy out of the Northeast, where we were in 6 states. I'm on right now. We're in 10 states. In the next 2 months, we're going to be in 25 states. I'm like, guess what? We're going to take over. We're just going to take over again. So yeah, watch out. We're going to start all the way back over and take over the whole place. But there's enough business for everybody, so we're not taking anyone's business.
Well, and that was my point. It's like y'all literally did more installs than anybody in the entire industry, right? And I've personally never ran into a customer. And I've knocked tens of thousands of doors, dude. Like, I've ran into
There's plenty of business for everybody. We're gonna spread a wide net across the nation. We're gonna be in every good market, and we're gonna be doing clean business. And we've got all these systems in place that Asim Hafiz and his wife Nicole, they brought me on as a partner in their company, and we're gonna expand out. And there's plenty of business for everybody. No one needs to go out of business in this industry because, like you said, there's more houses without solar that could use it. So everyone's gonna be able to make a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, we've had 5% market penetration. Is that correct? And we need to have 30x or 5x over the next 5 years.
Nationwide, I'd say it's less than 5. Yeah, and we missed the opportunity of going back to our old solar customers and then selling them new products. There's customers right now that have had solar long enough where they're like, I think I want a new system, and they're going to start removing old systems.
Really?
Oh yeah. There's people that have old systems that have silver frame. They're like, I want the newer panels just because they want it. Doesn't mean it's not working. They're like, I've got a small 5 kW here, remove it and put on a nice new 12 kW, and they want the newest technology. Yeah, there's customers that remove old systems right now because they're 15 years old.
Well, here's one more question for you, if it's okay. It's like the guy yesterday in the home, he goes, what if the technology improves over the next 5 years? Do you guys just come and fix and replace it and install the new one? I just said, hey, look, here's the reality. The panels that you're getting are the same panels that literally keep astronauts alive in outer space. What has come a long ways, though, is the financing. You used to have to pay $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 out of pocket to make the switch over to solar, whereas now it's $0 and it's a bill swap, and you're going to be saving, like you're seeing right here, $20 a month. But that's $20 a month now. 2-3 years from now, you're going to be saving like maybe $100 a month. He's like, okay. But I didn't really explain that maybe about like what happens if new technology comes.
The panels that are going on the house are the same ones that they use in outer space.
What would you have said there?
I wouldn't have said that.
Okay, so that's where maybe you come in the next day and you would have got the deal behind me, right?
If the guy would have said that, and he goes, yeah, the kid said it's, I go, he said the same panels on the roof are the same ones in outer space. Like, do you believe that? Customer like, no, it didn't sound right. I'm like, it doesn't sound right. No. Maybe cells like functionally do the same thing, but I would imagine NASA has a bigger budget than I do. So I think those panels are a lot different. You go, yeah. And I go, well, I don't think you're going to get space panels on your house, but I can tell you solar panels typically go up in efficiency by about 5 DC watts every 9 months. So if I'm selling you a 425 watt panel today, in 5 years, maybe the standard panel will be around a 450 watt panel. But you won't need that much more power because I'm already designing a full offset here. If your power increases, we could add more panels. If your power increases in 5 years, we can add some of those 455 watt panels because the technology I use individualizes the panels. They don't have to match in wattage on the roof. Does that make sense? Right. You can always expand your system. You can always get bigger panels later or higher wattage later, but you won't need it because I'm designing the system the right way.
Yes, I think we got that one from Edmund. And again, like you've been selling solar 3 or 4 times longer than me, so it's like you can't knock it, right? I think what I teach is like the conviction, the hustle, the grind, going out there, making it happen every single day. Like I asked the guy that I was training, I said, what'd you think about the presentation? He's like, dude, it was personable. He's like, I've watched other people, they just go in there like a robot and it's just like boom, boom, boom. Whereas you were asking them like, what's most important for you? Let me overcome these. What are the questions that you have? You know, my job is to help you out, of course, but that's no pressure to go solar. There's no pressure to go solar. So if it makes sense, you're going to do it. If not, you're just going to know a lot more about how solar works. Is that fair? So what questions do you have, right? And then it's like the whole presentation, I'm gearing it towards his questions. But you want to make sure that when you get those questions, like you're talking about, of like what happens if we get new technology? What happens? Like, what are some other questions you think that people are really missing the boat on right now in a scenario where they're talking to people about solar?
It would depend on what the customer's question is. If they, because that question's come up. What happens if the technology changes? I would say, you know what, it's a really good concern, and it's a legitimate concern, Mr. Customer. Are you saying that maybe you want to hold off until the newer technology comes out? Is that the notion? He's like, well, yeah, that's the kind of thing. This is a typical objection that someone gives you, like, well, I'll hold off until the panels get more efficient. And I go, right. I couldn't help but notice you have an automobile in the driveway. He's like, yeah. So you didn't stick with horse and carriage waiting for flying cars. You're going to do some middle technology in there. So you're using a car. And they go, right. And I also noticed you use a refrigerator to keep your food cold, not just bags of ice in a cooler, right? So you actually do buy current technology. The current technology we have is the best. I can't tell you what it's going to be like in 5 years. The panels could be a little bit more powerful, but 5 years ago, I was selling the same brand inverter. Yes, they've made tweaks to it, but 5 years ago, if you would have got solar then, how much money would you have saved between now and then? Like, customers that want to use the excuse that they'll wait to get solar for the next round of technology, then you're never getting solar. And you're stuck with the iPhone 5. Well, what iPhone do you have? They go, well, I got the 16. I just got it. Wow. They upgrade you every year and you just keep buying. That's weird. I thought, why don't you just wait until we're just telepathic? Like, you got to challenge the customer a little bit and say, you don't actually functionally do any of those things in your real world. Like your life, you don't do that. You don't just sit and don't do anything because the next thing's coming out. You currently buy stuff. I would like you to currently buy from me, get the best system you can on the roof. If in 5 years there's more efficient stuff out there, it won't matter because I'm giving you the right size system for your home.
Yep, and that comes with time, learning all of these different ways to explain solar. And we were thinking about coming out with this like a dictionary, like every single term that you can learn in the solar industry, and just compiling it all together in a book, because there's so many different things that people don't know about. Photovoltaic cells, AC to DC, microinverters. You were talking about those like combiner boxes and the different.
Hey,
I don't
don't worry about it.
what they were called. Do you know?
Don't worry about it. I'm doing
DW
that.
method.
I already have that.
Yes.
I have a
People
solar
need it.
solar
People
glossary
need
and
it.
index, but the solar glossary and index section isn't just going to be these are what the terms mean. It's here's what the terms are and here's how we use them. Like explaining azimuth. Yeah, a customer sees azimuth if they're watching a proposal, or we say the azimuth. Explaining the azimuth to someone is a 45-second explanation. You have, if you're going to do it right. You know, how do we orient the panels? We use the azimuth, which is the orientation relative to the horizon. Facing south is 180 degrees, facing east is 90 degrees. At your house, we want to go south because it has the most yield, but we're going to put some panels on the west because your afternoon power costs more than your morning power. We don't want to put them on the east side. The customer's like, oh, wow, you sound really educated. I want to go with you. It's all in an effort to build credibility so they buy from you. The stuff that I talk about, I'm not asking someone to be super technical. I just want you to say a couple, 3 lines where they go, man, you sound smart. I like you. You're personable. You talked about my tie-dye shirt and my Bears stuff. Great. I love all that. And you sound like you're educated. Yes, I'll go with you. Of course. How can I say no when you've given me all these reasons to say yes?
And he starts talking about putting Q cells on Jeff Bezos and freaking Elon Musk rocket ships.
Right. That's what we're doing. We're putting are the same cells when they go into space. I would never say that again. I would take that out of the
Definitely.
vocabulary.
Yep. Remove that from the vocabulary, and it's just again like that's a tough one to overcome. I think a lot of people probably struggle with that. They don't know what to say, but you just explained it. It's like that's how you overcome that. It's not even a objection. It's a question, right? It's a buyer's question of like what happens if new tech comes on.
Right. Then
Yep.
get the new stuff. Sometimes the shortest answer is the easy one. They go, what if new stuff comes out? Buy it. Ooh, I'll be stuck with those ones. You can take those ones down, put new ones up. Can? Well, it costs a ton of money and it won't be smart because this is not an iPhone. This is the solar system. Once you put it up there, you don't have to worry about the newer technology. If we were in 5 years in the future, I'd be selling you the 5 year in the future ones, but we're not. And they go, oh, like all the objections are eventually going to be easy to overcome. Like when someone says, oh, if I put solar on the house and I go to resell my house and the customer doesn't want solar, I'm going to hurt the resale value in that rate. I'm going to limit the customers that want to buy my house. And I go, right. But if you have a decent realtor or anybody's got a decent realtor, if they don't want solar, you're never going to have seen them before because they're not going to walk up to the house and go, I would have bought it, but solar's up there. It doesn't make any sense. You have a pool, right? They go, yeah. And I go, well, what if the buyer of this house doesn't want a pool? You're going to fill it in with dirt today? They go, no, you're right. You're just going to not sell your home to someone who doesn't want a pool because you have one. We're not making decisions in our lives for the betterment of our family because of the next buyer of our home. Did you paint the walls because of the next buyer of the home? Did you get your kitchen countertops that color because of the next buyer of your home? Or do you like it? I like it. Right. You like saving money? Let's get some solar up here. Quit making all these stupid objections before I burn your house down. Don't say all that part.
Say that part. Say that part.
That's the tough part. You don't want to say that.
So, I mean, the last question with that being said is because I think a lot of people, they're probably not saying the right things at home, right? And maybe they're even misrepresenting solar. For example, the homeowner asks, hey, I'm getting battery backup with this system. The sales rep knows full well they don't do battery backup, but they say, yeah, you're going to get battery backup, right? How do we fix that kind of stuff? And is the solution possibly regulation in the solar industry? I know that like the solar, what's it even called? The solar group they have together.
Oh,
the solar,
RSA?
RSA, yeah. What is that called? The Residential Solar Association. You've got people like Sam Taggart with D2DU. He's doing some like certification. Snapper Academy's thought about putting together like, hey, here's a certification. You take these modules, and really it's like kind of a CYA for the company if like a rep does go out there and misrepresent it. But what are your thoughts on regulation in the industry? Is it coming this year? Is it never going to come?
There's regulation that exists already. I was trying to help Mentis become the regulatory agency where they were going to do third-party verification, but they couldn't get any traction because they weren't connected with SIA and all that. But you can go through all the modules, you can do all the training, and you can be the perfect rep. You could explain the tax credit excellent. And 18 months from now, when the loan has to re-amortize and they've got to pay the tax credit back, but they maximize the tax credit and they went to Disneyland on it, and they get a notification from their loan company saying your payment's going to go from 220 to 279, they can still call you up and still be pissed off at you, and they can still say, you never told me that. And you can have a recording of yourself in the home telling them that, and they'll still go to the Attorney General, and they'll still complain, and they'll still stop paying their monthly payment to the loan company. And then the loan company, if they choose to, can contact the homeowner and say, hey, you're not paying the monthly payment. And they go, well, yeah, because, I just don't feel like doing it anymore. Well, were you lied to by your rep? No, I wasn't. I saw the video. I wasn't lied to. No. Were you lied to by your rep? Because we can cancel the loan and get the money back from the installer. Oh, yeah, I was lied to by my rep. You don't think that really happens? You don't think that they're being coerced into defunding stuff like that? You want to put some regulation? Put it on the people that are screwing the industry like that. Like, where's the sales rep protection agency? Have we ever considered the notion that sales reps aren't all scumbags? We're not all lying. Customer gets a battery. Oh, I get battery backup. Yeah, you get battery backup. It's not for your whole home, and it doesn't last 5 weeks in a row. It's going to back up very specific loads at very specific times for a short amount of time. But yeah, you have some battery backup. They go, oh, okay. That's a legit thing to say. Everything the customers, the stuff we get in trouble with right now is because we're saying it too broad. What happens during a power outage? Does the system work? If the rep says, yeah, the system works during a power outage, well, that's wrong. Saying, no, it doesn't work. Customer says, why? Why doesn't it work during a power outage, Will? Do you know why?
Why doesn't it work during? Because you're still connected to the grid. The grid goes down, you still go down.
Yeah, but why? The customer's saying why? Okay, I understand the grid goes down, my system goes down, but if the sun is out and the panels are there and the inverter's there, how come it doesn't work?
Well, I think what a lot of people say is like, yeah, you'll still get power for 4 or 5 hours.
Well, yeah, but we know it doesn't work that way. But tell me, the customers ask you, why doesn't it work? Tell me why it doesn't work. It seems like it should work. How come it doesn't work?
Well, they've got the bidirectional meter on the side of your house, and so the sun hits the panels, and it's supposed to go back to the grid. But since the grid's down, there's nowhere for it to go unless they have a battery backup.
Why can't it just come into my house if I'm using power in the house?
Because there's nowhere to store it, the power.
What do you mean store the power? I'm using the light bulbs right now. I'm using it. Like, it doesn't store it when I'm using it directly. When the grid is on and I'm using the power into my home and it's not going to the grid, it's not getting stored anywhere. I'm using the power in real time. I'm running my air conditioner. How come it doesn't work during the day if there's no grid? I'm not using the grid when it's a normal summer day. Do you know why that is?
No, I don't. And it's funny because this was a question the homeowner had yesterday. Like, if the grid goes down, like, we still have power, right? And it's like, no, you don't. The grid goes down, so you still
Wouldn't it be
down.
nice? Wouldn't it be nice for you to know why an inverter doesn't work when there's no grid? And it's the reason why is because the inverter has to match the grid frequency for the inverter to turn on. It's a pure sine wave inverter. It matches the grid frequency. That's why when you first turn an inverter on, it doesn't immediately turn on. You turn on a system for the first time, it takes like 3 or 4 minutes. If you stand there next to like a solar edge inverter, you hear it go click, click. That's the grid and the inverter matching frequency, so it can send power like that and like that. I don't know if I'm doing the wave. I was never good at breakdancing. Give me some cardboard though, backspin. The point is, if it doesn't have the grid, it can't function because it doesn't recognize that there is a place to go back and forth. It needs to match frequency. And we don't say that to a homeowner when we could and we should, and you would sound so much better. How come it doesn't work during the day? Because it's a pure sine wave inverter and it has to match the grid frequency in order for it to come on. I can't just turn it on isolated. It would have to have the notion of a grid to function. If you had a battery, the battery can simulate the grid and it can work in that manner. But no, it can't work without the grid. And they go, oh, good, quick, lucid answer that satisfies my curiosity and doesn't derail the conversation, and it doesn't force me down a rabbit trail of talking about battery technology. I get to go forward to the next objection, which is, well, I'm concerned about the payment, blah, blah, blah. But we give them a quick, lucid, accurate answer that satisfies the question without opening up a big can of worms for other questions.
Yeah, it's all about making sure that everything you're saying is always proceeding the sale forward versus something that's maybe they start questioning you, questioning solar, questioning whatever it is.
But when someone asks us a question and we give a double talk answer, we lose credibility because customers don't go, Will, I appreciate you saying something about the meter and the bidirectional thing. It's kind of like sounded like double talk, and I don't trust you anymore. They don't say that. They just go, okay, and they don't press because they realize I don't want to hear another double talk pseudo answer about space panels.
And what do you mean by double talk? Double talk is saying it's not.
Double talk is an explanation that's not an explanation. Someone says, how heavy are the panels? Well, the panels are constructed in the lab and they're made out of glass and aluminum and they're not that heavy. They're rectangles and they go on the roof and it's totally cool up there. What did I ask you? You asked me how much they weigh. Do you know? No. I just gave you an answer to fill the air and I just don't know the answer. So I said, not that much. It's not a real answer. How much do they weigh? Oh, they weigh about 50 pounds per panel. They're put on the roof and they're spread out wide. So it's about 5 pounds per square foot. It's not going to be any kind of weight at all for the roof. You shouldn't have nothing to worry about there. And they go, cool. Give them a accurate, intelligent answer. Every time you answer their question, every time you handle their objection with a nice, educated answer that doesn't trip you up, you keep gaining credibility while moving them forward. At the end of all their objections, when you've satisfied all their objections without talking too much, without giving them a double talk answer, at the end, you almost can go, folks, sounds like you have to buy from me now. And they go, why is that? I go, because I've answered every single concern you had in a very educated way, haven't I? They go, right. There isn't a good reason not to get solar. Wouldn't you say that's correct? I would say that's correct. Excellent. Let's see if you guys can qualify for this system. I'd like to get you on the schedule as soon as possible. Here we go. Let's fill out the application. And you walk them, boom, to the next step. But you're some point, you're going to say, guys, you have to buy from me now. You know, why?
I like that.
Because I've done everything, because I've answered everything, and I've done a great job. And you know I've done a great job, and you know the value prop. Let's not fool ourselves. We're dating. And they go, yeah, you're right. Great. Fill this out. Social security number, date of birth, approved. Let's get you going. Let's get it installed pre-permit.
Yep.
Some other companies.
Let's push this. Let's push this. No, I think, David, I appreciate the perspective shift today because I think, like, again, I've only been in this industry for 3.5 years, but the reason that I was able to get on this podcast with you is because we understood the power of, like, social media, branding. You've seen us at the events. We go out there. We're networking with people. Which I think is like very important, right? Like, guys, solar is not just like solar. It's a personal development program with a compensation plan attached to it. You can learn these leadership skills. You can learn the art of the hustle. You can learn how to be, knowledgeable in an incredible industry that's helping a lot of people out. But I think, like, again, the perspective shift is when I first started, and I think a lot of people will say the same, and I'm sure you agree with this, David, is that people don't really take the time to become an expert at solar, how solar works. We know the basic questions that homeowners are going to ask us, and we overcome those really from just what we were taught and like who we were taught from, like who are they taught from, right? And it's like, I think there needs to be like one source, and it sounds like you're doing that with DW Method. We're doing our best with Snapper Academy with like the setting training, closer training, how to invest, how to build how to run a blitz team. I think, you see a bunch of companies doing like the whole blitz program. I think it's, that's a good way to do it. You can also do it the full-time model, right? And just go out Monday through Friday, just work it like a normal job, 40 hours a week. There's so many ways to do it.
Every one of those things you said, that's why all of those things have value. You doing it one way has value. Sam Taggart's way of training has value. Everyone has some value. If there's somebody getting something out of that, great. And there, like I said, there's enough people in the world here, enough people in the industry where they can say, you know what, I would rather listen to that person, rather listen to that person. And there's going to be credibility issues everywhere. Like someone can say that person didn't do it this way. They don't know because they didn't do that. Doesn't matter. If someone is inspiring, okay, they're inspiring. I mean, Andy Elliott's got a history. Everyone knows that he got in trouble for selling cars back in Norman, Oklahoma. Got some kind of litigation. Doesn't mean he's not a good salesperson. Doesn't mean he's not a good trainer. Doesn't mean he's not a good motivator. Yeah, he had something happen like that. I ran a huge company, and people can bash Titan all day long about different things that happened in the past. Yep. Doesn't mean that I'm not correct in the way I say this is how you should educate someone on solar. I mean, everyone should be cool and say, look, I like that person. I'm gonna listen to what they have to say. And if they want to join that team, they join that team.
Yep. But I think we need to bring everybody together, dude. I think we need to create the Avengers. It's like you, me, Mod, Wolf of Solar, Danny Pesci, everybody but Taylor McCarthy. Is that fair?
Why not Taylor McCarthy?
He's not in. Taylor's not in. No, I was joking. Everybody's in. But I think that'd be cool. I mean, there's, like you're saying, like a lot of knowledge out there, but like have people even watched Sam's training, right? Have people watched Michael O'Donnell? Have they Ashton Buswell Legacy, right? He just came out with one. So there's a lot of information out there, but you want to make sure that you're getting the right information. Right. And it sounds like you're going to be doing that with DW Method. And last question before we wrap this up. And again, thank you so much for your time, David. It's been a perspective shift. You've put us on game. We appreciate it. Where can people find you? How can people hang out with you? My first time being on a private jet, guys, was with David Williamson. It's pretty cool. It was my first time on a private jet, right? I know you're like a world freaking star poker player. You're always hanging out, having some cigars with the friends and coworkers and people you're mentoring and stuff like that. So if somebody were to want to kind of hang out with you and learn from you, how can they find you and how can they come and hang out with you?
Best way is just going to my Instagram. David the Solar Goat. I would go to my Instagram, reach out to me there. I've posted my phone number in the solar industry on big forum groups, 10,000 member forum groups. I'm not scared of posting my phone number anywhere. I tell people all the time, 480-599-8686. Text. My phone number. I had every one of my employees at Titan, had 1,800 employees, W-2 employees. Every single one of them had my cell phone number. If someone needs to talk to me about something, just call. Text first, though. I'm a millennial. Just always text. Text or FaceTime.
No, I think that's cool. I think your best ability as a leader is your availability, and so it sounds like you're doing that.
Yep.
And last thing I'll share before we hop off is that's what Elon Musk does. His biggest thing with like the reason why he's such a good CEO is he goes into the company and says, "What's the biggest problems that you guys are coming over like going through right now?" And then he solves those. And it's like for all of us as leaders of our teams or our companies or whatever organization we're a part of, it's like if you want to be the leader, you go in there. And he's like, he would just literally for 18 hours, which I'm sure you could have done this with you said you had 1,800 W-2. It's like you schedule a 5-minute meeting with every single person to find out what they're doing, what they're going through, what they need help with. And that's what he did. So you're better than Elon Musk, David.
Oh my gosh, I wish. Give me half his money.
Yeah. No, dude. Again, we appreciate you for being on the podcast with Snapper Chats. Guys, we're going to link David, the Solar Goat, in the description below here. We're excited to see what you're doing with DW Method. I think, my goal, guys, just so you know, like whenever I take different courses, which I've taken a lot, is like you want to go in there and you want to be the best student that David has ever had. Like that should be your goal when you go in there and you learn these courses. It's like, I don't know if it's going to be $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000. But it's like take that and use that to 10x, 20x, 100x your investment. And that should always be everybody's goal whenever they want to make that type of investment. It's like it's easy to send the money, but then the hard work comes when you actually have to like do the work and apply yourself and actually spend those 10,000 hours to become a professional. So David, you've put in the 10,000 hours, and that's why people should look at you as the authority. And you've been doing this for, gosh, dude, 12, 13 years now. I mean, obviously with your whole sales career longer, but specifically in the industry, and not a lot of people can say that. So excited to see what you do. Excited to learn more about the solar glossary. And again, guys, the solar panels that we're selling are not the same ones, just so you know, as the ones that we have in outer space.
Yeah.
All right. So again, David, any last words for everybody as we wrap up this podcast? Any words of encouragement, motivation for everybody as we go out there and make 2025 the freaking best year of our life?
Just the energy that you're bringing. That's what everyone should just be encouraged. There should not be one person. If someone wants to talk about how bad things are, just stop talking to that person. Don't. Everything is positive. There's no reason to think anything bad. The industry is super awesome. The product we sell is awesome. We're getting more and more things to sell. And it's ever changing, which means it's fun. We're not selling a boring product. Like everyone should be encouraged to go out, get a new customer, get a new recruit, and build. This should always be going forward and building. This is the best industry to be in, honestly.
Boom. David, thank you so much, guys. Another awesome episode of Snapper Chat Podcast. And until then, we'll see you next time. Peace.